UW360 is proudly supported by BECU, a not-for-profit member-owned credit union. Pacific Office Automation, copy, print, workflow, and IT. Problem solved.
Hi, I'm Jen Hammond. Welcome to UW360. In this episode, we'll take you to India, where Tibetan Buddhist monks are learning neuroscience, show you a great tool for bus commuters, and hear from University of Washington President Michael Young. We'll also do a little time traveling with a look at campus life in 1963. And our first story is about the UW's Integrated Design Lab, a service connecting academic research with commercial building design to promote energy efficiency.
Hundreds of buildings constructed throughout the Northwest have a hidden advantage. Their designs have been tested and perfected by a University of Washington lab where commercial architecture and engineering meet the science of energy efficiency.
We're helping develop conservation as a primary source of energy in the future. Essentially, we're trying to substantially reduce the amount of energy that commercial buildings use, and therefore reduce the amount of power that we have to generate in the region.
The Integrated Design Lab, or IDL, is known for its innovative research into building designs with built-in energy efficiency. The lab tests architectural and engineering models, suggests energy-saving yet cost-effective options. Then, after construction, the lab measures the operational value of the IDL recommendations.
The critical component of any good design process is setting early design goals, be they energy or lighting or cost, and then testing for performance in terms of meeting those goals throughout the design, construction, and operations process.
One of the IDL's claims to fame is its testing and research into the energy-saving value of daylight in built environments.
Lighting in commercial buildings consumes roughly 25% of the electrical energy used, or maybe the total energy used in a commercial office building. Being able to turn the lights off is the key component of highly energy efficient commercial buildings. That means good access to daylight.
And it'll move with the model.
The IDL's daylighting lab measures how a building's design and location affect lighting, cooling, and heating requirements. Here, the heliodon emulates the Earth's rotation relative to the sun. Researchers select the latitude of the building site, set the time of year, then rotate architectural models through hours of the day, measuring the angle and the movement of sunlight through a building's interior.
And we measure the brightness in the sky here.
The lab also recreates the overcast skies of the Pacific Northwest. Light sensors measure the difference between overall ambient light and the percentage of light reaching the inside of a building.
So if we can turn the lights off, reduce the cooling load, keep the sun out of the buildings, then we can actually almost eliminate cooling in buildings and take that capital and reinvest it in other energy efficiency measures that will reduce the heating that we put in our buildings, which is the dominant way we use energy.
Although much of this work is now modeled on computers, the daylighting lab helped create those computer programs and break new ground in energy-efficient designs for commercial buildings. And many of the designs percolating from the Integrated Design Lab are old ideas, now considered state-of-the-art.
Funny enough, state-of-the-art ideas 60 years ago. Buildings that use daylight, buildings that are thin, buildings that have operable windows.
The impact of the lab's research and testing is easy to find. The architects and engineers of the Terry Avenue office building used the IDL's services to design an award-winning space.
It was one of the first buildings of its type with great daylighting, and it was the first office building built in Seattle without air conditioning since the late 1950s.
And the newest tower at the UW Medical Center incorporates the latest innovations by IDL researchers.
And what we found out was that the largest energy use in a hospital is for heating. More than 60% of its energy is used for heating, and yet it consumes enough energy internally and most of that energy is turned into heat, that it shouldn't need heat until it gets below 20 degrees outside. So it was sort of like, Houston, we have some sort of a problem here.
The lab developed strategies to construct hospitals that are 50% more efficient at no additional cost. And the applications for the IDL's research are not just regional. The lab is now working with medical centers in the nation's 5 largest cities.
I think what we've done regionally is, one, build a bridge between academic research and practice. And in architecture, that always isn't as connected as it should be.
We also educate these folks so that they can export this as a skill around the country. We've worked on over 600 buildings since 1999 in the Pacific Northwest, and we're completing roughly 2 million square feet of construction every year. It's a really great and exciting time.
If you'd like more information on the Integrated Design Lab, you'll find a link on our website, uwtv.org/UW360. And coming up next, we're off to India, where UW professor and neuroscientist Eric Chudler spent a few weeks working with science for monks.
Today, we're going to talk about the most important part of your body, the brain.
Eric Chudler is a neuroscientist with a strong passion for teaching.
Remember, neurons are like little batteries. They generate a little bit of electricity.
And a creative approach.
Juggling, that's my brain in action. My brain helped me catch things. My brain helped me see.
In 1996, Eric formed Neuroscience for Kids, a program and website that helps teachers educate middle school students about the brain and nervous system.
Well, I think it's real important that people learn about how the brain works. And so one of the goals I have about teaching people, especially kids, about how the brain works is that maybe I can inspire one of those kids to find out something about the brain that we really don't know about.
Last May, Eric got the opportunity to bring his teaching to a new group of students.
It's a program that's called Science for Monks, and it was established about 10 years ago. And it's a program to teach Tibetan Buddhist monks about Western science.
Eric, along with 2 other Western scientists, was invited to teach at a Buddhist monastery in India. The journey itself was quite a challenge.
Just traveling 20, 25 hours to get to India and landing at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning in a completely foreign land is quite stressful. And from there, it was a 2-hour car ride to a small town called Bir in very northern India. And it was a very bumpy road. I guess it was a 2-lane road, but it occasionally went to just a single lane.
And then there were the communication issues. The monks and nuns spoke little English, and Eric spoke no Tibetan. So he had to be creative in his teaching methods.
A lot of the words in neuroscience are literally Greek and Latin. And those are the derivatives of a lot of the words in neuroscience. You know, hippocampus, cerebral cortex. They really are Greek and Latin. When you use these terms, it's sometimes difficult because there's a language barrier. And so hands-on activities and learning what the language means can help in having a person understand.
With some creativity and the assistance of translators, Eric presented lessons that were fun and engaging for his students.
Teaching neuroscience seems like it's a complicated topic, but we're all walking, talking laboratories that we're able to test ourselves. So I would present a concept, for example, reflexes, and I would explain the pathway involved, for example, the knee-jerk reflex. I would diagram that for them, and then we would demonstrate it. And for the optic nerve, we had an eye chart.
Luckily, Eric already had a wealth of teaching aids from which he could draw.
So all of the activities that I took to India were all developed through Neuroscience for Kids. So they're good for adults, they're good for kids. They're not so good for professional neuroscientists because they're models. So they don't work completely the same way that nervous system work. But a lot of them are very good models that can be used to illustrate concepts.
Eric shared his knowledge of Western science, but his students had much to show him as well.
I'm not an expert in Tibetan Buddhist religion, but I was able to have conversations with a number of the monks and nuns about some of their beliefs. And there is, I wouldn't call it a clash, but I would say there is a difference in some of their beliefs, in that from my understanding, their belief that the brain and the mind are separate is different than mine, in that in my own belief, the brain and the mind are together. The mind is a product of the brain.
Considering the differing worldviews between Western science and the Buddhist religion, you may be wondering, why teach neuroscience to Buddhist monks? Well, Science for Monks was created over a decade ago in response to urging from the Dalai Lama that science education be integrated into monastic curriculum.
Even though the monks and nuns have a tremendous amount of education, they don't get a lot of neuroscience and Western science. And so some of those basic concepts that are ingrained within Western society, they're quite foreign to the monks and nuns. And so the goal of the project is to have them understand some of these neuroscience concepts so that when they go back to their own communities, they can be the go-to people there. And perhaps by gaining a better understanding about how the nervous system works, they'll have a better appreciation for neurological disorders in their own communities. Their thirst for knowledge was fantastic. In fact, they're some of the best students that I've ever encountered.
Eric's passion for teaching will take him back to India in 2012, where he'll work with a new group of monks. On our website, uwtv.org/uw360, you'll find a link to more information about the Science for Monks program. And if you'd like to watch Eric in action closer to home, you'll also find a link to a science show for kids, Brainworks. Now, our next story is right here on campus, but far away in time. It's been 150 years since the first students were admitted to the University of Washington. Throughout the year, we'll give you glimpses of campus life in the past, provided by UW Library's Special Collections. Take a look at life in the dorms almost 50 years ago.
Campus living has changed, and a good example of the new style is Haggett Hall, the University of Washington's first coeducational residence, and a new look in residence architecture as well. The building stands on a steeply sloping site on the edge of the campus overlooking Lake Washington. The men and women who live here enjoy the view and find Haggett Hall a comfortable and convenient place to live. This young man coming home from classes is George Weber, an electrical engineering student at the university. George is from Tacoma, and Haggett Hall is home while he's here. His reactions to living here are typical of the 800 students for whom the Twin Towers provide living quarters. There are 2 students in each room, and they share a mailbox as well as an appreciation for letters from home. All the student rooms in Haggett Hall are hexagonal. The shape helps solve problems of space utilization and privacy and provides a view for each room. Living in a coeducational residence gives an added incentive to be a little neater, a shave before dinner, and a little more attention to dress. Resident advisors report a high level of dress and behavior by both men and women students. Like most young people, the students living in Haggett Hall are active. On the plaza level are 2 recreation rooms where table tennis before dinner may use up a little excess energy. The main lounge is a favorite spot to sit and enjoy the view or a book. Often students meet informally here with professors in one of the faculty coffee hours or seminars typical of the educational activities that are part of living in a campus residence. Directly below the main lounge is the dining hall. Here there are separate serving lines for the men and women. Although the menu is basically the same, there are slight variations. Skim milk for the girls, whole milk for the boys. Many students say the food is better here. In any case, the residents of Haggett Hall do get a balanced diet in a varied and attractive menu, and the food is consumed enthusiastically. This meal consisted of salad, meat, potatoes and gravy, vegetable, cake for dessert, and milk or coffee. Arrangements can be made for parents or other visitors to eat here with the students. A person can eat at a small table or with a larger group. Conversation at dinner ranges from sports and the present productions at campus theaters to world events and studies. Studying is a daily discipline, a habit not difficult to acquire at Haggett Hall. After a congenial meal, it's easier to settle down to work. Student government within the halls is enthusiastically supported, and each group sponsors its own social and cultural activities. Students find residence hall living at the University of Washington is an important and enjoyable part of their education.
Here's another bit of UW history for you. This is Drumheller Fountain, one of the most familiar sights on campus. In 1909, it started out as Geyser Basin, part of the Alaska-Yukon Pacific Exposition. It eventually became known as Frosch Pond after sophomores started a tradition of tossing freshmen into it. In 1961, for the university's centennial, Regent Joseph Drumheller donated funds to build the fountain we see today. And now, back from our past into our future. New University of Washington President Michael Young took office in July. UW 360 reporter Nicole Sanchez spoke with him about first impressions and future plans.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Congratulations.
On July 1st, 2011, the University of Washington welcomed Michael Young as its new president. Known for an easygoing style and sense of humor, he also brings a distinguished record as an academic leader with broad experience in public service and diplomacy. He clerked for a Supreme Court justice, served in numerous government positions, taught law at Columbia, and was dean of the George Washington University Law School before becoming president of the University of Utah. Under his leadership, Utah significantly raised its academic profile and became the nation's leader in the number of new companies generated from university research. 1 month into his tenure at the University of Washington, we talked with him about his vision for the university's future.
Well, Michael, it's so nice to meet you. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us. And I understand today happens to be your 1-month anniversary with the university. Why don't you first just give us your impressions, a little bit of the feedback that you're getting as you get to know people here in the university more?
Well, it's been a wonderful month. As I expected, this was a great university. I don't think I expected how really good it is. I mean, every time I turn a corner, I find out something about some absolutely extraordinary world-class program here, and that has made it wonderful. I think the other thing that I probably underestimated was just how enthusiastic everybody is at the university, as well as the supporters outside the university.
As we're all feeling this tough economy, public higher education, of course, is feeling the crunch too. What ideas do you have for creating more sustainable funding in this very tough climate?
Well, we need to think both about sustainable and predictable. I mean, I think it's tough to see budgets go up and down quite as much as they do, predicated solely on the capacity of the state to fund the university. Now, we fortunately have a pretty diverse set of funding streams for the university, and I think we need to work to enhance all of those. Research is a major component of what we do and is a major component of our funding stream. We need to be sure that we're sort of hitting the sweet spot for the federal agencies and NIH, NSF, as well as foundations. I think we need to think about working more attentively with corporations for sponsored research and collaborative research that we can do. But we need to ensure we do that without distorting or diverting the academic agenda and the academic integrity part of it as well. But there are things we can do there, I think. Tuition will continue to be an increasing part of our budget model, I think. So we need to be certain that we're able to provide lots of financial aid and other assistance to ensure students who are admitted have the capacity to complete their education here. We are very committed to that notion. This year alone, with the tuition increase, we increased financial aid by 45%. And still are keeping true to the Husky promise. Anybody with a family income level below a certain threshold actually doesn't pay any out-of-pocket tuition, and right now about 25% of our in-state undergraduates don't pay any out-of-pocket tuition. And so we're going to need to work on all of those as well as others, I think. The commercialization enterprise will produce some revenue over time. It's not really the central purpose. The central purpose is to take the research and try and make people's lives better, get it out into their lives and improve those lives. But if it has some economic benefit to the university, as it ultimately will, that'll be useful, although that's a longer term proposition.
Yeah. When you look ahead to a day when we are not in these tough economic times, that day someday will come, we hope. Tell us what you want to have your legacy be and how you want to move the university forward. What do you want to be, remembered for?
Well, I want to be remembered for basically unleashing in an even greater way the full creative power of everybody who ever steps on this campus. I think it is a remarkable university, and I think it has tremendous people here, and my goal is to ensure that they have the resources they need to thrive, to grow, and to do what they want to do and do what they do best.
Is there a certain area you'd like to see the University of Washington get on the global map for?
Well, it's on the global map in an awful lot of areas already. I mean, I've spent most of my career in kind of international studies, and the University of Washington has been a global leader in a very broad range of areas. One area where I think we're likely to see some real movement is in the kind of gradual transformation, and it may not be so gradual, of public higher education. We have tremendous pressures engendered by technological developments, not only in terms of how we deliver information and learning, but how students think. I mean, they're coming in having engaged information in a very different way than their predecessors did, and that changes the way they conceptualize and understand. Technology also does transform the kind of research that can be done. It transforms the way in which we connect with the outside world in just dramatic ways. In addition, we're launching our kids into an incredibly global world, and people and money and information and goods and everything you can think of just pass seamlessly across those borders. That's the world our students are going to live in, and helping ensure that they have an education that prepares them for that is going to be very important. And all these pressures, I think, ultimately are going to change the way higher education looks. 10 years, maybe even 5 years from now, it isn't going to look a lot like it does now. And I think one of the exciting things about being at the University of Washington is the pieces of this university are so extraordinary. The imagination is so terrific. You're in the center of one of the most imaginative business communities in the world. And so that mix can really, as these pressures cause us to transform, I think can help guide that transformation in a way that we really will become the template, the leader in terms of what education looks like in the next 10, 20, 30 years. And that's going to be exciting, I think.
Well, it has been a true pleasure talking with you and meeting you. We thank you so much for taking the time out of a very busy schedule, I imagine, to talk with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
If you're a bus rider, this next story is for you. One Bus Away, developed by 2 UW graduate students, is designed to get you where you're going with minimal stress.
So imagine you're a typical bus taker. You're standing on the side of the road and you're looking, when is the bus coming? When is the bus coming? There's a lot of stress involved in that. And if the bus is 5 minutes late, that can be a big deal. If it's 20 minutes late, it can be a really big deal.
Bus schedules attempt to be accurate, and bus drivers aim to arrive on time, but they can't always predict unforeseen circumstances like accidents or heavy traffic. And for the rider, irregularities in service can be frustrating. In 2008, 2 University of Washington grad students came up with a plan: give riders a leg up by pinpointing bus locations in real time. Brian Ferris and Kerry Watkins combined their computer science and civil engineering skills to develop the web and mobile service One Bus Away.
One Bus Away is a set of tools for public transit riders here in the Seattle, Tacoma, and the Puget Sound region that really helps focus on making it easier to ride the bus.
As a rider, you can use your computer, smartphone, or any old cell phone to access One Bus Away. And you'll know your bus is on time or running late. On the website, onebusaway.org, you can enter your stop location to find out when buses are coming. On your cell phone, you can text or call to get arrival information.
For a basic cell phone user, you can call 206-456-0609, and it'll say, "Where is your bus? Let's find out." And then you can look for your stop number posted at the stop, and it'll ask you to enter that stop number. You just punch it into your phone, and it'll start reading to you real-time arrival information about the buses serving that stop. It'll tell you that the 3782 will be here in 5 minutes, or that the 65 will be here in 10 minutes.
For smartphone users, the mobile app has been by far the most popular feature all over the Puget Sound area.
So we have close to 50,000 unique users a week who use One Bus Away, and the iPhone app, the Android app are certainly popular. So even though we try to support riders from all walks of life, certainly the fancier phone, the app is really popular with those riders.
Brian brought the technical know-how to One Bus Away, and Carrie provided the expertise of transit systems.
So it'll depend on what kind of screen they get.
Beyond creating the service, they conducted studies and surveyed riders to find out how real-time transit information affects riders and changes behaviors.
So there's a lot of research out there that says that when we're in a waiting situation, we don't perceive that time is passing as it is. You feel like instead of 5 minutes is going by, you feel like that's 10 minutes, typically.
Even if you have to stand at the bus stop and wait for the bus, no matter when it's coming, if we can tell you that it's 5 or 10 minutes away as opposed to you not knowing, it just removes a lot of stress, a lot of frustration. It just makes you a happier rider.
And happier riders are more likely to take the bus instead of their cars. Not surprisingly, Brian and Carrie share this experience.
Well, it's funny, on the days that One Bus Away goes down for a server glitch or something, I don't even know how to get home. I've forgotten what I used to do before real-time information. I'm just like, paper schedule? How do I find this?
For me personally, I used to be a sometimes transit user, sometimes car user, and since having the power of One Bus Away, I have started to use my car less and less. And I travel with 2 young kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. So when I'm doing trips, it's not just me with a lot of flexibility. It's 2 kids who are waiting at the stop with me.
As students do, Brian and Carrie have graduated from the University of Washington and are moving on to new adventures. Brian will be working in Zurich, Switzerland on Google's transit team. Carrie has accepted an assistant professor position at Georgia Tech.
We look at our cities and we look at trying to make them sustainable. You can never put down enough pavement such that everyone can drive. If you're a strong car advocate and you never get on a bus in your life, I always say, well, think of it this way: the more people you help to ride the bus, that's less traffic that you have to deal with yourself. So it's a win-win for everybody.
To check out One Bus Away, you'll find a link on our website, uwtv.org/uw360. And that's it for this edition of UW360. You can watch this episode online, and we'll be back next month with all new stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in October.